वो उसमें फिर रिपोर्ट के लिए इशू बनेगा आपके लिए, लेकिन एनीवेज आई विल बी स्पीकिंग इन इंग्लिश.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. And I'll be taking kind input of both of you for reports, sir. It's our first session, sir.
जी जी प्लीज. एक्सीलेंट. अपना जरा तारफ शरफ भी कराएं सबको.
Sure, sir. I'm just waiting for Syed Hamza. He will be, taking start as a host, sir.
ठीक है. Are you in Quetta or in Islamabad?
So right now in Quetta.
No, Quetta. Acha. How's the weather?
Sir, it's very hot these days.
Oh, acha.
अब आ रही है?
Yes, sir. I can hear you properly, sir.
I can hear you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. कैसे हैं आप? ठीक हैं?
Sir,
So good to-
alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind time, both of you. It's
Nice.
as our first initiation, so that would be inshallah very productive and learning-based session, inshallah, sir.
Thank you. And I'm so honored that you invited me, especially you, both you and Humayun Saab, and talking about youth and especially Baloch youth or youth from Balochistan.
Yeah, sir.
It's always very close to my heart, and having somebody like you, young, fresh faces from Balochistan, it always gave me hope.
It's
And
an honor for us, indeed, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir Humayun Saab, what do you think before we formally start our session? So, do you think this is the right way to engage our youth, especially, for example, I plan to have a special think tank in Balochistan because there's no formal think tank in Balochistan. So we have taken a small initiative and we have long-term plans for that, for our youth to have a research center. So we have started initiation with this one. So what is your take on this, initiation, sir?
I think it's an excellent move. Especially, it's an excellent move from the point of view that people from Balochistan have taken the initiative, and it's always that people from outside in the past have taken certain initiatives, some good, some bad, but uh, it's the responsibility of the Baloch people, Baloch youth, Baloch younger generation, that they take uh, the future destiny of Balochistan in their own hand and try to have some future plan for themselves. Unless you don't have a plan, people from other regions cannot give you plans. And the plans that we will have, let's say in KP or in Sindh or in Balochistan, in GB or in other parts of Pakistan, uh, you can tailor some of them, but you cannot have like one plan fit for all. Balochistan has a history of thousands of years. It has its own uh, urban culture. It has its own rural culture. It has its own ethnic diversification. It has its own tribal rituals and customs. So thinking coming from Balochistan can give us a better idea. And since we are a federation, and it's very important that Baloch voices are heard more than giving point of view from our side and then implementing on you. So I guess your initiative is wonderful. Involve as many people as you can. You have very learned people. You have excellent people. You yourself, you have come a long way. You have studied at the National Defense University, one of the most prestigious defense universities in Pakistan, and you have done excellent, remarkable, which shows that Baloch youth are as good as any other youth in Pakistan. So I guess I believe that this is one of the most brilliant ideas that you have started, and continue with that. And any help that we could give you, any input, any suggestion, and any connection that I could help you, not only within Pakistan, but outside Pakistan as well. Particularly, I would like you to get connected with the Chinese think tank as well, because China has a very important role as a growing global power as well. And then there are a lot of issues which deals with China and Balochistan to some extent, and then China and Pakistan generally speaking. And now the regional development which are taking place in last couple of months, I'm sure you must have been following Iran, China, Chabahar port, the Chabahar and Zaidan railway, India getting out of that railway track, and then Afghanistan is very close to having a peace deal. So it would have a huge impact on Balochistan. And the potential of Balochistan is so tremendous that, if only 50% is utilized, I guess it's going to be the next economic, cultural, political hub of this region, not only Pakistan, but this region. And, historically, we have always used this word in our classes as well, in lectures in IR and political science, that, Pakistan is at the crossroads of civilization. And particularly, Balochistan is at the mouth of that crossroad of civilization, where Middle East, where road from Central Asia crosses, where Iran, Afghanistan, where Chinese, and then we have Africa just across. So I guess the importance of Balochistan becomes manifold in this particular aspect. And you being the leader of the younger Baloch youth, educated one who has a lot of exposure and who will have more exposure in the coming days as well. So take the lead, and I guess I can only wish you good luck. Seriously, it's a very good move.
Thank you
Excellent.
so much, sir, for your kind remarks. It has been really a pleasure to have some competent faculty members out of Balochistan. We need such more, efforts. Sir, on Sai Saab, over to you. Same question. As Humayun Saab rightly pointed out, we need more inclusive approach, more initiative like that down the road. So do you think that government is interested? But to be very honest, when my opinion is asked anywhere, I fear and I believe that there is lack of political will. How do you think, how to engage, how to utilize that political will so that they can take this initiative, they can support, they can, support and supervise such kind of initiative down the road in future?
First of all, thank you. And I totally agree with Humayun Khan Saab about this initiative, and indigenous initiative by Baloch youth. You don't have baggage basically. We from Punjab, if we talk about Balochistan or somebody from Sindh or anywhere else, we have baggage. Like people, they can say, look, this is what you have done with us. But an indigenous, kind of with the total ownership from Baloch youth initiative like this, it would definitely, political will comes when you have a proper, kind of platform. If, people from Lahore sitting from Islamabad, they would go and talk on behalf of Balochistan, I don't think anybody would take them seriously. But people like you who have stakes over there, you are somebody, Humayun Sahib was telling that you came to Islamabad, studied at NDU, and then you're going back to your bases. So this gives you a lot of legitimacy. This gives you a lot of space. Somebody like you who could have easily settled in Islamabad. There's so many people who can exploit Balochistan. It's so easy to here in Islamabad to exploit that I'm from Balochistan, from a very backward area, and now I'm here, I'm studying here, give me my space here. You can make that claim, and that claim could be legitimate, no issue at all, because you are part of Pakistan and you have a claim here in Islamabad. But not staying here and going back, which is a problematic area. Sorry, I'm using that, jargon, because here everybody thinks about that. That's why somebody like you who got so much education, who got so much time invested in Islamabad on the top universities and going back, this would give you, this is the only way, I'm telling you, something owned by the Baloch youth, Baloch people like you, who have exposure of the different cultures and different cities, and especially the capital. They are going back totally, you have teachers like Humayun Khan, and there's so many other teachers, and you have kind of exposure. You have, the reality more than those kids or those children who are sitting in Makran, studying in those universities and having one-sided narrative. You are lucky enough that you have all sides of the narratives, and then you have you can make a very educated decision, which I really appreciated, which you have already made. But this is the exposure from different areas of the country, and then at NDU, there where you interacted with different cultures. You are not interacting with different people from different cities or of Pakistan. You are interacting with different cultures, and then that exposure basically gives you that idea that you need to go back. You need to start an initiative. If you can have this thinking, if you can have this kind of learning going back, the kind of pressure you can put on these politicians who are sitting in Quetta or in Islamabad or in Lahore or wherever they are. Only you can, indigenous people with exposure, with the kind of education you have, with the kind of linkages you have, only they can, put that kind of pressure that the politicians and all other stakeholders, they will have to take you serious. It's not only about the age that you're a young person and nobody should take you serious. It's about the initiative. It's about the courage. You have that courage. You have that exposure. You have that education. You have that background, and you have that support. Basically, you have a support system in Islamabad. We can talk on your behalf to people here, but we need somebody whose behalf we would be talking, not as our own Sahi, on the behalf of Sangeen Khan or Sangeen Baloch or whosoever that would be. I can go and talk to some Baloch leader or hear some PMLN leader. Look, these are the Baloch youth. They are doing this. They were here in Islamabad. They have all those opportunities to work here, but they went back. No, you need to own them. And I don't think anybody would dare not owning you, but you need to keep on trying. There would be failures, there would be disappointments, but don't, get it to your heart. Keep working hard. You have, we are only 70 years old nation. And, it's nothing when it comes to age of a nation. 70, 80 is nothing. But even from that perspective, people like you coming out at that young age, you shouldn't be disappointed at least for the first 5 years. That is my advice to you. When I started my career as a journalist, they were saying first 3 years would be only disappointment, disappointment, disappointment. But don't get disappointed. Just pick, just keep on working on your strengths. They will have to listen to you. There is no other way. You are the hope from Balochistan. We have seen other Baloch youth who were attacking in Karachi, who are, attacking in Gwadar or here and there, and they are all are educated. You took the right decision. You took an educated decision. You don't want to end up like them. In fact, you want others to be like you. So they will have to listen to you. Maybe in a year or so, you would be able to bring 10 or even 15 people out of the clutches of those who are using them. That would be huge success for you. So start thinking small. We don't need to think big. Small initiatives, very small initiative, 8, 10 people, if you could bring them, mainstream them, that would be a huge service, not only to Balochistan, but to Pakistan as well. So there's no other way that they are going to deny you the political will. If they would do, we are here to support you. We are here to remind them, and you will get it.
Very fine, very truly you pointed out that we need an inclusive approach in order to advance the national interest of Pakistan, and we need to accept the true genuine grievances of Baloch people. By the time we don't accept, we don't recognize their identity, we cannot move ahead. So thank you so much. With that, I would like to request Syed Hamza, my co-host, to formally start today's session. I would request Syed Hamza to please pursue today's session. Syed Hamza, can you hear me properly? Hello? I guess there is a signal issue. Hello?
If Hamza is not around, I guess Sangeem Khan, you can go ahead and start.
Yeah. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Sangeen Khan. And as you know that today we have taken an initiation online sessions that basically aims to bring the masterly opinions of our academicians, think tanks, scholars, practitioners. So it has been our first session. Before I formally start, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to both of our today's panelists, Amayun Khan and Sir On Saisab, the way they encouraged me, they cooperated with me. Still, we are student in learning phase. So first of all, I really extend my gratitude to both of you. Bundle of thanks to have you there.
Same way. Thank you.
So basically, as you know that today we have chosen a topic that is mainstreaming Balochistan and challenges and opportunities. So as you know that Balochistan, which occupies 44% of Pakistan landmass, after even after 7 decades, still this province faces multi-dimensional challenges. So there has been, governance issues, mismanagement, lack of political will, so many challenges. At the same time, we have, the talented lot. We have this potential in this province which can play an important role. So there are so many hot questions, so many confusing questions. So for that, we have invited our two panelists, Amayun Khan and Sir On Saisab. Their masterly opinion would definitely help us to to play in our research papers or to recommend those for policymakers at the government of Balochistan, especially. Unfortunately, the reason being to conduct such kind of session was that, being a student, I am desperately, disappointed from our politicians, and there is no there is no an iota of, development activity. Especially, they have badly ignored education. So we need to, engage them. So we have today, basically, I would like to start with Amayun Khan. So Amayun Khan, who is an experienced, you has remained a faculty member or at National Defense University, who has served as a faculty member from 2010 to 2020. He has closely worked with Chinese various think tanks, who is the executive and founding member of Pakistan Council on China. So his opinions matters a lot. He has, frequently visited Balochistan, and time and again, he has closely engaged with Chinese leadership as well, especially when it comes to CPEC. He has very profound understanding. So, Mr. Amayun Khan, my teacher, what is your kind take on, especially how do you see Balochistan, especially with the inception of mega project CPEC? On one hand, we see, big dreams. Balochistan is moving. Balochistan would be an Asian tiger. But on the other hand, ground reality states that Balochistan still lags behind in terms of development. They are, looking for the pure water. They still don't have gas from Dera Bukti, those areas. So, what is your kind take on having profound experience, having, frequently, interacted, frequently visited, frequently wrote your at national and international papers? What is your take on? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sangeem Khan. Thank you very much for having us on this online webinar that you started. It's one of the first in the series, started by your think tank. Excellent move. Uh, I guess it's a very important question. And I will start with this thing that, I am probably one of the least informed people when it comes to Balochistan. I've traveled to Balochistan many times and I've interacted with a lot of friends, but still, having said that,
Hello, can you
yes, we can hear you. I guess the views of uh, the Baloch youth, Sangeem Khan, and also views from other friends as well matters a lot for me, and it's a learning process for me. And I hope I will learn something from today. I'll give my opinion on what you just mentioned, and I'll give a brief statement first, and then we probably could have more later on in the question and answers session. Absolutely true. It's been 70 years. Balochistan has been neglected like anything. It has one of the best potentials in terms of resources, people, geography, location, but has not been given its due status for many reasons, which I'll just explain. Being the largest province, as Sunil Khan was just mentioning, 44% of the land mass, this remains one of the most underdeveloped regions up till now in our 70 plus years of history. Literacy rate is also amongst the lowest. Official words or official figures put the statistic to 41%. Again, the definition of literacy is also very vague in Pakistan. And then when it comes to Balochistan, it's even more vague. So if one assumes that it's like somewhere near 40%, uh, I'm still surprised and shocked. It should be like higher, but nonetheless. Then also in terms of like 44% of the land mass, Balochistan contributes least to the nation GDP, which is a failure of the governance of the government of Balochistan, the failure of government of Pakistan, the failure of institutions of Pakistan, economic, political, all of them, because we have not been able to utilize Balochistan to its fullest potential. Look at UAE, look at other Middle Eastern states who also have almost the same like 40, 50 years ago, and what tremendous achievement that they have done. We also hope that now there is a realization we could also see Balochistan in the next 15, 20 years, at least close to UAE and hopefully better than growing economies in the region. The state institutions, as Zangin Khan was asking my take, are very weak. They are underfunded. I'm talking about in Balochistan. They are undermanned as well. There are very less people compared to what the actual demand is. There's a large area of Balochistan which operates according to locally administrative customary law rather than the state law which should have been there. And there has been improvement, by the way. The last like 30, 40 years, there has been a lot of improvement in that aspect, but still it's very little and very less. Its security problems are also not the one that can be subsumed in the national security problem. It has issues that are distinct to Balochistan, and they require an equally out of box thinking to solve those issues. Uh, and we need to tailor the solution for those issues. We cannot implement the same issues in, let's say, Fata area or previously called Fata area or KP or Sindh or even Punjab and then apply them in Balochistan. We have to tailor them to the needs of Balochistan. Uh, there's always a thinking in Balochistan, and rightly so, because it's a federal government which controls, and it's a federation of Pakistan. And now we also have, after 18th Amendment, a lot of delegation of power to provinces as well. But then there are many weak areas in between. The last NFC award, which happened probably in 2007, I guess, in People's Party's time, since then, we could not be able to constitute the next NFC award. There has been the controversy of the member who should be representing Balochistan. Where in this particular government, in PTI's government for the last 2 years, there has been 2 or 3 members who have been nominated, and then people went to court against them because they were not, let's say, Baloch, or they probably may not have the understanding of Baloch issues per se. So that's a separate issue. The question is what they expect from the federal government, how to solve those issues when Balochistan also remains somehow a region which has not been the priority of our media as well. Mr. Onsai is a very learned senior journalist. He can explain the reason why uh, we have all issues which we would like to focus. But when it comes to Balochistan, like the interior of Balochistan or the south of or the west of Balochistan, Balochistan is only given importance, slightly importance when it comes to, let's say, international issues. Now that we have China-Pakistan economic corridor, so in that context, somehow Balochistan become visible on mainstream media. Other than that, there is only negative news, which is insurgency, which is terrorism, which is sectarianism, which is separatism at the same time. So that is the reason when Balochistan gets importance. Other than that, nobody cares in mainstream media what is the issues of Balochistan in terms of education, health, water resources, maintenance of roads, infrastructure. So that needs to be taken into account when we need to understand the 70 years of miseries of Balochistan. How can any narrative on Balochistan be built if the news coming out of province remains only few and far between? So Balochistan doesn't have a narrative; it has only bad news, which is coming to, unfortunately, and I'm saying it with a heavy heart. I'm not saying that this is something which should continue. I think this should discontinue as soon as possible. Uh, and unfortunately, Balochistan has been out of our nation's focus, policymakers' focus for a very long time. Lately, in last 5, 6, 7, 8, or 10 years, there has been a lot of improvement as well. But this improvement, if one takes into the account of how 44% of the landmass of this country should have been treated, comes at looks like an afterthought of most policy consideration. That you have done everything, and then in the end you say, "Oh, well, there's something we should do with Balochistan as well," and then you do little, and then move on, and we have other issues or other problems. Yes, there is insurgency in Balochistan and needs to be tackled in a very technical way. It needs to be tackled in a very strategic way. It needs to be tackled in a very comprehensive way. The border with Iran lately has been plagued by sectarian groups, several of whom are affiliated with foreign terrorist or foreign nations organizations as well. So the Iranian border side of Balochistan had an issue which has more sectarian tinge. Then we have a long border with Afghanistan. It has its own dynamics as well. It has its own issues as well. Then we have a huge coastline, which has a lot of potential, which has a lot of issues at the same time. Uh, the border with Afghanistan in the past has also been very problematic. So far, it is still. We started doing the some certain portion of fencing. We started doing certain portion of trenching because this particular route has been a major smuggling route uh, of drugs, and in last few years it has come down, but in the previous couple of years it was huge. So that's also an important issue which needs to be looked by the federal government, the Coast Guard, the security apparatus of Pakistan as well. And then the mainland of Balochistan is also dotted with extremist groups, which has certain portion of TTP, which has BLA, which has BRA, which has many other, and we'll come to that in a bit. Perhaps the most dangerous among these groups from the security point of view that we were discussing with our friends for a long time are the separatist groups, whose activities have been a major impediment in industrialization, infrastructure development, particularly when it comes to Gavada. Other areas, there has been negligence on the part of the policymakers, but now that we have moved out of that quagmire, and we started thinking that we need more industrialization, we need more investment in agriculture and infrastructure. These groups are a bigger impediment. And we have seen that in last couple of years, particularly in last few months, there has been renewed attacks on our security agencies, our infrastructure. Uh, uh, Last year there was an attack in PC Hotel in Gawada. Then recently, a couple of days ago, there were attacks on our security agency, and this is a regular thing on that area as well. Some of them may not even become like a mainstream news. It only comes as a very small news item, and then it disappear. So what we need to do is the state needs to respond strongly to all of these groups, but that response cannot and must not be a heavy-handed approach, which we have been doing for a very long time. That we see an issue and we just fight it out. I guess this fighting it out uh, needs there. This we need a security side of fighting this issue as well. But we also need, on the other hand, a political will as well, dialogue with these people as well to bring them closer to the mainstream as well, rather than throwing them away. Because our historical experiences all over the world, we have issues of Tamil tigers in Sri Lanka. We have the issues in Scotland. We had issues in Afghanistan, for that matter. After like 20 years, they've realized that fighting is not the solution. It has to be a political settlement or a dialogue or a peace negotiation with all the stakeholders, and that is an issue. So a heavy-handed approach always makes issues slightly more complex rather than resolving or solving them. For this particularly, it is necessarily entails, if we do a heavy-handed approach, there's going to be collateral damage. Blanket policies, broad state power, and crude methods of uh, quashing this insurgency sometimes helps for a limited period of time, but unless and until you address the root causes, it comes back, and it comes back with more power. So it may not be a very effective approach of like fighting with the fighters and only using guns. We need to use tables, we need to use papers, we need to use pencil, we need to use dialogue. So this is something which is very important. Uh, and then these particular groups, the separatist groups, they also have damaged the common Baloch mostly. They have damaged infrastructure, they've damaged provincial government or federal government, but they've also damaged the life of the common Baloch, the right of a common Baloch, the vision for a common Baloch, the thinking for a common Baloch, the future of a common Baloch. It has been greatly damaged by these separatist group and their ideology as well. Uh, and because of them, the genuine grievances of common Baloch people most of the time are not addressed, because we are focused mostly on fighting these separatist group, and we think that majority of the Baloch thinks like this. Whereas statistically speaking, I've had interaction with senior government and security officials. They put the number of these separatists, these organizations who are associated with terrorism or other, maximum sometimes from 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000. And the rest of the Balochistan, they're like normal people who need peace, prosperity, progress. So our focus, because of these, it's like less than 1% of, or maybe even less than 1%. So 99% of the Baloch problems gets on the back burner, and we focus on this less than 1% of the problem. In terms of the thinking of how these, we cannot always blame these separatist groups as well. Uh, it's a very complex problem. They also have this understanding that they have developed over the last 70 years. It is wrong, but then you need to engage them to have discussion so that they could get a narrative as well, which the government is trying to implement. And for last 60, 70 years, since government was unable to perform the basic function of governance, There are many reasons. I'm not like the idea of this particular webinar, as we were discussing with Sangeem Khan, is to highlight the issue and then